feel like we should have Jeopardy music on or something.
I know. I was like, it's really,
Quiet. All right. Well, I'm hoping we are live. We're still getting this technology down. Again, this is Heather Tankersley here, and I'm here with Karen Schaefer today. And just to kind of remind everybody, I'm here in Austin, Texas. I do my investment real estate in Florida and Texas, and also have my real estate license in both states and work with buyers and sellers and investors in both the Austin area and Southeast Florida. And Karen, just remind everyone where you're from and what you do.
Sure. I'm Karen Schaefer. I'm here in Southern Colorado, which is absolutely gorgeous right now. So if you guys haven't been here to see the leaves change, I mean, it's phenomenal. And my husband and I do an abundance of investing here in Colorado. And I'm also in the top 1% of real estate agents throughout Colorado, I should say. We do all kinds of work on the real estate investor side, as well as the real estate agent side, regarding commercial properties, vacation rentals, and then just obviously straight buying and selling. So we'd love to be able to, hear from you guys if you're coming through Colorado sometime.
Awesome. And, just to remind everybody, if you're new, we're kind of doing a weekly investor series. And so we've kind of covered Investing 101, we've covered wholesaling or flipping contracts. And today we're going to go into kind of the fixer-upper flipping houses model, which I think collectively we probably have 40 years experience, which is crazy. We started when we were like 2. So,
or less.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite topics. And I just, I want to, before we go in, just, we have a little blurb that we've kind of read as long as I've been doing these webinars and teleseminars and training for almost as long as I've been flipping houses. And, you've got to cover everybody. So just a quick disclaimer and we'll dive on in. So to the best of our knowledge, the information discussed throughout our training series, materials, and on our website is true and accurate. There is no guarantee that you'll make money using the information herein, and it's possible that you may even lose money. You should consult with an attorney for any legal advice and accountant for any tax advice. This is not meant to be a business opportunity. We are not responsible for how you choose to use this information. The examples provided across our media may not produce the same results or any results at all. So that's just kind of, we've got to keep us all safe and legal here. We'll share what our experiences are, some of our own examples, maybe some examples from clients of ours. That's one of the things I ended up working with Magnolia Realty out of Waco because of the whole fixer-upper brand that they had developed, because we've been doing it for so long and it was just a great synergy. And so it's kind of fun for me to be able to walk into houses with people and, when I know what they want, say, okay, well, here's how we can make this for you, or here's how we can create value for you so you can get, we buy it for this much and you can, do X, Y, and Z, and now you're going to get the money you put in and then some and have equity and enjoy your home. So I really love the rehab side of things. I'm not sure, Karen, sort of, if you love the rehab side or flipping side, I guess you should be careful with how you phrase that. But the flipping side of things is just kind of where my passion is. So
yeah. I like it too, because I like the creative process throughout it. So I love being able to evaluate the deal. That's, the first thing that I really love, being able to evaluate a deal. Like that's my thing. When we get a phone call in the office and somebody answers a phone, all the information gets filled out. And the first thing that happens is it comes to me. So I'm the person who takes a look at everything. And I love a fix and flip because it's a cool process, for your brain and your creative muscle, because it's just, it's fun. It's fun to see it come all together and fun to make the money,
And, we've seen no shortage over the last couple of decades of shows on HGTV when it comes to fixing up houses. And I think we talked about this a little bit last week. I can't stand when you have this person and they buy this house and they put X amount in and this is what they listed at and they made X amount of dollars. And I think it does a disservice to investors because they're missing a lot of the pieces, and they're just kind of going, oh, well, that was super easy. I can do the same thing. And there's a lot more that goes into it. So we may touch on this topic in a couple of different sessions, just because there is quite a bit to it. But just to kind of, what we're talking about today is where you go in, you buy a house at a discount, you add value, fix it up, put a new kitchen in. You can do as simple as slapping a fresh coat of paint on and changing the carpet and, putting it back on the market. Or you can, do full on additions. And then you put it back on the market. Or, we're talking about flipping from an investor standpoint, but you could also do this on a property that you purchase, or you may want to buy and hold for rentals. The difference is what you put in, depending on what your strategy is. So that's sort of the model that we're talking about here.
Yeah, no, I think the idea behind a fix and flip is to take a look at it and then evaluate, can I make money off of this? What do I have to do to make that money? What's the margin? And what makes it attractive to the end user? And I think that's the question that people forget to ask is, what makes them fall in love with the property in the end? So a lot of times they're like, oh, I need to do all these huge technical things. And sometimes you don't actually have to do all that. Sometimes it's just about, appealing to somebody's emotions and boom, I'm not saying you don't have to improve it, because you do, especially in order to get it to appraise and all that other good stuff. But I think people sometimes, Heather, you run into this too, on the real estate agent side of things, where so many investors actually overfix that they lose their profit margin. And there really is an art to fixing and flipping. So it's not just about, like, anybody can come in and dump, $100,000 into a property. Like, that's so easy. What's hard is, dumping 20,000 into it and making the same, still being able to sell it really, really well. And I think that's where the real talent lies. And I'm just pulling numbers out of thin air. Obviously, some houses need big money, but I think the key to success is really saying, if we can see this property, figure out how to get it, and then define our numbers. Then the next thing is, like, define your buyer, what really appeals to them, and how do you fix it up accordingly while still optimizing your own profit margin.
Yeah, so it's funny. The very first deal, I think if anybody listened last session, we talked about wholesaling and how we flipped our first, I think we both talked about our first flips, our wholesale deals. Mm-hmm. And so basically I went to this real estate seminar with a friend, and we had kind of fallen into a first fixer-upper. Her parents had gotten divorced, excuse me, and left the house to her brother in the divorce decree. And so he promptly never made a mortgage payment. So guess what happens when you don't pay a mortgage? So it was a really unique situation. Yeah. It's funny. People will look at this big stack of papers, and, I've had a couple people that'll want to read every page at the closing statement. I'm like, absolutely. If you want to read it, go ahead. But here's the gist: pay your mortgage or they take your house. Like, all of that paperwork pretty much just tells you that and how they're going to go about it. Yeah. So anyway, the cool part about it is, one, we knew the house. I mean, we'd both been there. My friend had been there quite a few times. It was in Florida, so it was driving distance. We were in Miami, and it was this little town outside of Orlando, so about a 4-hour drive. I wouldn't sleep in a fixer-upper, but we knew the house. It was just her family that had been in the house, and we even started renovating while we lived with her family, which, just an FYI, don't do that. But we were just getting started. This is before we'd ever been to any training. We'd seen the late night infomercial on, I don't know, No Money Down Real Estate might have been the name of it. And so it was actually kind of funny. There's all the different kind of deeds. We didn't know, is it a quick claim deed, a warranty? We signed every deed, had them all notarized. We're like, we're bound to have the correct one. Like, that's how much we didn't know. And so we had this book that was like how to do a fixer-upper. And it was like, if you do this, you'll get this. So in other words, if you put in a kitchen, you'll get 25,000. If you do this, you'll get 10,000. If you do this, so when we were done, we put a house on the market for 175,000, and it didn't sell. And we're like, what in the world? So finally we ended up getting this agent. His name was Vance. He was the weirdest little guy, but he was plenty nice. He just started in the business. And so he came over, and he's like, we need to list it at 145. But the book said this. And he's like, well, I don't, that house says that, and that house says that. So we're not getting 175 for this house. And that was kind of my big lesson in terms of how to know what to spend and where it goes, you know, like where you're going to spend your money. I mean, you have to know what your competition is. Just because you have the nicest house in the neighborhood. And another example on that note, my husband and his brother are the heirs of his dad's house in Arkansas. And it's in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's beautiful, 5 acres, when it's, you know, the Army Corps of Engineers, I guess, maintains the land around it. So like, he can't cut down trees. So in the summer, you can't see the water, even though it's a beautiful lake at the bottom of his property, that in the winter, it's a great lake view. Well, this is like a 6,000 or 8,000 square foot house where, you know, all the houses are selling for $150,000. So you can over improve and it will not sell because it's just not, there's just not a buyer for that in that location.
Yeah.
So I think that's important for people to really understand. So I'm glad you made that point.
Yeah, I always think so too. And the other thing I'll say is on fix and flips, well, I remember distinctly one of the ones that we had, and there's no great story behind this. There's only a great lesson. Is be careful who you partner with on these fix and flips. Oh. See, I could see the pain cross your face right then, Heather. So, you know, a lot of times you go, wow, well, we could, you know, partner with these people because they can either bring, you know, time or money or whatever resource. And generally what happens is you end up coaching them because they don't understand how to do it. And what they brought wasn't that valuable. And you end up not making any money because you're trying to split something that's way too small because you guys didn't evaluate the deal correctly anyway. So I would just say, when you go to do a fix and flip, one of the biggest lessons that I learned was just be careful who you partner with. And that doesn't mean you're great either. It just means, you know, you really have to make sure that that person brings extraordinary value in order for you to want to partner with them. Because if not, truthfully, in my opinion, at least, you're almost always better just going on your own, unless you have a solid partnership and you guys do all of your fix and flips together or something like that.
Definitely. So let's just sort of talk about the details here and use some examples, and I'll see if I can't pull some up while we're talking here. But, you know, we talked in the wholesale session about different ways to find contracts to flip. And one of the reasons that I like fixing up is just because, and admittedly, I was very fortunate that I had a hard money lender, which is somebody that will generally be a lot more generous with the amount of money that you can get and understands the fixer upper, but for that quote unquote generosity, you're paying. So we paid 16% interest and 2 points, which means 2% upfront. But they would cover the cost of the entire cost of the purchase, the entire cost of the renovation, and they weren't owed anything until closing. So, you know, you could probably get hard money nowadays for 8, 9, 10% tops. I'm guessing. I haven't used hard money in quite some time. And, you know, 1 or 2 points. So it's gotten cheaper over the years, in part because of where the interest rates are just in general. So, you know, we were able to, so when I would come across deals, I'm like, well, it doesn't cost me anything to take the deal. So if there's profit in it, I'd rather just do the fixer upper deal myself versus sell the contract, because I knew I could make 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever on the deal. So there's a number of ways that you can find these. If you have an agent that knows what they're talking about, I used to do bus tours, and they're so much fun. We would have these workshops, and we'd have 10, 12, 15 people in for the workshop over the weekend. And for one of the days, we would actually go to properties, because to me, it was the most valuable thing that I got out of our local real estate investor association when I was starting. We paid to go on this bus tour. And it's where I got over the fear of when you walk in a house, you go, oh my gosh, this is way too scary. I'm out. And then you just see, you know, it depends on where you are, but you see, okay, these are basically 4 walls, a roof. You gotta look at the foundation. There's plumbing, there's electric, and there's heating and cooling. And when you just realize that it's just those things and everything else is kind of superficial and cosmetic, it's not so scary.
Right.
And I think that's important to understand. So when I learned that, I started to say, well, And there were some cases where I said, no, I'm not doing this. Like there was some fire damage stuff, and I don't like to get into fire damage, just especially in South Florida, because it tends to be bad with they tend to mostly be on frame houses, which are problematic in South Florida because of hurricanes, but I digress. But most of the time I just said, well, there's so much money in the deal, I'm just gonna flip it. So consequently, I got a ton of experience doing anything from just lipstick on a pig, as they say, to major renovations. And so I'll tell you, there's tons. There's direct mail, word of mouth, friends and family, social media, signs, ads, local. I mean, you can go on and on and on with the list of ways to find deals. And maybe we'll just do that as a call or a training one day, just all the ways to find deals. But where I've done the most of my business is through direct mail and through agents that understand investors. Like when I do these bus trips, I'd have agents say, oh, I've got a great property for your tour. It's 10% below market value. I'm like, yeah, you really don't understand this, do you? Because that's not going to do anything.
So can I backtrack just a little bit? I want to talk about hard money, but I will also say this is most real estate agents do not understand investment properties. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for that, but it's absolutely true. And it's nothing against them because they might be great at something else, but it just means most of them don't understand that. And they're going to tell you that you can buy at 80 cents on the dollar and flip it and make money. Well, Heather and I are living in very, very strong appreciating markets. Not every market is ours, but you have to figure out what works in your market. And to buy at 80 cents on the dollar is super risky. And so just FYI, pay attention to that. Sometimes they'll even tell you 90 cents on the dollar is okay in an appreciating market. So you guys just be super careful with that and understand that you want to seek out a real estate agent if that's who's going to help you. You want to seek somebody out who actually understands numbers and how you can make money on that deal, how much money needs to be put into the deal, how much it costs to buy, how much it costs to sell, how much it costs to hold, all that other stuff. So make sure you have somebody who really understands how to analyze an investment property so that you can end up making money, because most real estate agents and new real estate investors will find that the investor either breaks even or loses money after 3, 4, 5 months of rehab, and you should never do that. The other thing is on hard money, I just kind of want to share our experience because we have a rock star hard money lender, and like Heather, we're in a fortunate position now after we've built for several years that we don't have to use that hard money as much. But we still occasionally use him if we're having multiple deals going on, or I refer him to a lot of my really strong investors, only my really good ones. But and he's basically, depending on the deal, 1 to 2 points, 10 to 14%. So they're still not super cheap. And I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, that's insane. Well, it's not, because if you guys were working with somebody else, guess what? You're paying that other person 50%. So if you have a partner or something like that, you're paying them 50%. Hard money lender, yeah, that might be expensive, and say you're paying them 10, 12, 14%, but it's 40% less than you're paying a partner, and you don't have to deal with somebody else. You can make all your own choices. But just so you know, put it into perspective. So is it worth it to pay that money and be able to do the deal, or not pay that money? So, you might go, wow, that makes forces me to pay $10,000 in holding costs. Yeah, but if you're making $40,000 or $50,000, are you willing to walk away from that, just by paying 10? If I could pay 10 and make 40, I would do that as many times as I could. So
exactly.
Just put it into perspective for everybody.
And so, I want to this is kind of an interesting, I'm just trying to pull it up here and see if I can't, I'm trying to figure out where I put the pictures that I just downloaded. Presumably I put them on my desktop, but it does not appear to be the case. So perhaps they went to Photoshop. 1 second. So I want to give y'all a story. Well, that's exciting. I have no idea where I put these images. I'll just pull up photos. So I mentioned that we did a lot of direct mail. And so here's kind of just a fun story. And this is just to kind of work our way into or up to bigger fixer-uppers. So several years ago, we went and wanted to see if a particular community in Austin was a good area for investment property. So we sent out, I think I'd mentioned before that I like absentee owner marketing. it's it's just been very profitable for us. And so we went ahead and sent out this direct mail campaign to see if there was a market for investment property in this particular area. Sorry, I'm pulling up stuff. Okay. And there wasn't, just a spoiler alert here. But about a year later, my husband got a call from this woman, and she said, the house has been rented for the last year. We don't live there. We've already retired. We live in another, they, told us where they live. And we're thinking of selling it. Are you interested? So we said, well, sure, we'll take a look. And, prices are always relative. We have a mutual friend, and I remember years ago, he was talking about, he'd bought this $250,000 house and, $250,000 house. And people were like, oh, well, I mean, if you're that successful, you should be buying $3 million houses or whatever. First and foremost, Karen and I, and most of the people we associate with, want to live in a nice home, but don't want to be house poor, have a beautiful house and nothing else. So I just preface that. And it just depends on where you're coming from. So, where you are, this might be a big home. It might be not a big home. But basically, I don't recall what she was asking for the house, but it's in a very nice area. It's where University of Texas Golf Club is. And she wanted more than we were willing to pay. And let's just see if I think I'm getting better, but let's see how to show my screen. The button that says share my screen. Okay, so I'm just can you see this, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay, so as we're walking through the house, and by the way, we did buy the house, and the counters have not been that clean since we moved in. So this is the house. So when you look at this, well, Karen, what is your thoughts, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice home. I think that the cabinets are a little bit dated, but it's a nice layout, and but overall, I'd want to update a little bit in the kitchen.
And this is kind of a panoramic, so you kind of see the kitchen. Trying to see if you can see the walls. You can't tell too much, but I call it builder's beige. So there you go. You can kind of see the colors in the house. So not bad. And it's funny because our Christmas decorations have never been that mild either. So at any rate, we saw opportunity here. And I don't know if I have a good yard picture or not. We might have done the yard first. Let me see. So yeah, I mean, the yard wasn't very nice. There was kind of a whole bunch of dead spots next to the house. I think more of it's video, so you can't really see. The yard sloped a little bit, but so when we walked in, we saw potential because we said, okay, we get all this. And we're kind of actually going through a secondary renovation coming up here shortly. But we said, okay, we're going to go ahead and make an offer. And during the inspection, we're going to see what it costs to have everything painted. So, I mean, I'll show you I think I probably have bathrooms and kitchens in here. Oh, and the garage has never been that empty either. I mean, that's a laundry room. Stairs were fine. Bathrooms, nothing's wrong with it, and it's in decent condition. So we went and we had a quote to have the house painted. And now I'm gonna look for just a second. I'll pause it so that I'll pause it. So I can find the other, and you don't have to pause share. Okay. And so we negotiated, I'll just give you the numbers so that we can put it into context. We negotiated the purchase price down to $515,000 and went ahead and got the deal put together and had everything painted before we moved in. And I'll just kind of show you here again. This was the bathroom. It was all the same as the other rooms, but here, let me find the kitchen just to give you an idea. So this was the updated kitchen, and even it was just paint. We did the island gray. They were putting the doors back on. We're actually about to change the doors now to shaker doors, and we're going to change the backsplash and the granite. But we changed, the ceilings and the walls were all beige and like a cream colored baseboard. So the ceilings were all painted. bright white. The walls were a very light gray. The baseboards were all bright white. The cabinets were kind of an eggshellish kind of color. So just to kind of show you a little bit about it. Then we had the home reappraised, and I told you we bought it for $515. We had it reappraised the following year, and it appraised at $675. So we kept the house, but we could have literally done that. And then we did, I don't know if we have pictures of that on that side yard. Yeah, here's sort of before and after. You can sort of see the difference, and it's just so much lighter and brighter. And we put a deck on the side yard. We kind of flattened the top so that, oh, there's kiddo. So that the kids could play outside and that sort of thing. So, I show that to you because you can do a higher end home and not necessarily need to do a whole big thing. We just literally painted and did some landscaping and added, and even when you factor in our cost to do that, which was about 20 grand, I mean, we added about $140,000 of value back to this because of what we did, and where they were going to sell. And they were going to list it with an agent for $535. So, the agent couldn't even see past that and say, hey, if you spend $15,000, I can get you, $650 for this house. So, I think it's important to understand it doesn't have to be a massive, massive renovation project.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think, I think, Heather, your appraisal even was before you guys even did landscaping.
Oh, yeah, we still haven't done landscaping because of COVID.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though, before you did like
Yeah.
a lot of stuff in the backyard, and it's really just a matter. And some people would look at those cabinets and go, well, I like those. Well, that's fine. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about how do you add value in order to be able to fix and flip the property. And adding value is updating it, and updating it right now is painting it in lighter colors. So the house looks and feels like it can breathe, updating your cabinets with just a really pretty oil-based paint. And Heather, I think you did a two-tone cabinet, right? Didn't you do a gray and a white or something?
We did gray and the island.
Okay. And so it's just a matter of knowing those few things. And that's kind of comes full circle to when we first started talking today, is like, how do you, who's your buyer and what do you need to do for them? It's not really about, Heather didn't have to gut her kitchen or redo everything. She just said, I'm the typical buyer in this area, and these are the things I would like that are updated for this home. Fresh coat of paint, because the beige, while it was, like she said, just fine, it just felt a little older and dingy, and fresh cabinets, and a hole in $20,000. Heather probably did some fresh, fixtures and lighting and a few other small things, but a hole in that gave her $100,000 margin. And
yeah, to be fair, if I were flipping it, I'd have probably put another 15 in. And what I would have done is we updated fixtures over time. The fixtures in this house were pretty interesting. It was like, I've never seen Game of Thrones, but I'm pretty sure they came from the set. Mm-hmm. And then we did put hardwood floors in our bedroom and the office after the fact, and I'd have done that probably to sell it as well. But all that being said, that's an example of a pretty quick and easy flip property where you could turn around and make yourself $100,000 for very, very little effort and energy. And, that's an extreme example, but, and here's the other thing. We bought this in 2017, and just down the street, a comparable home just sold for $750. So, 2 years over 200, or 2.5, 3 years over, about 200,000 in equity is pretty darn good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it really is. And I think that, so you can do a variety of fix and flips. You guys, you can do anything from, like Heather was just talking about, with her own home, which was a great deal. And there's a lot more to it, obviously, because they went out and they, marketed for the home, they negotiated the home, they did all these other things. But you can also start with a smaller home, and then depending on your area, I mean, there's areas where you can still buy a home for less than $100,000 or less than 200,000, and it just comes down to how much does it take to fix up? How much does it take to buy, sell, hold, the whole shebang? And then what kind of profit margin are you looking at? And if you're buying a house for $100,000, you might be like jumping up and down to say, hey, I can make $25,000. Well, that's awesome. Go for it. Because guess what? Now, the next time you do a fix and flip, you can take a step up and buy a $200,000 house and make, $40 or $50,000. So it really is just, again, it comes full circle to just being numbers. But there's a variety of things you can do out there, whether it's a higher end home like Heather was just talking about, whether it's just a generic little bread and butter 3-bedroom 2-bath home in a mediocre neighborhood. Like, there's money to be had in all of these. And don't let people tell you that our markets do not have fix and flips, because they do. You may have to work a little harder to find them, but they are out there, and they're always there.
And you may have to go a little bit outside of, right in the smackdown. So in Austin, for me to find something, walking distance to the city, to the cities, I'm probably not going to get the margins, but it's still possible if you know what you're looking for. I want to show another example just to kind of, show people some of these things. Let me pull this up. So this was more of a, what you think of when you think of a fixer upper. This will be tricky because I've got 2 applications I'm going to have to figure out how to toggle between. So this is one that we got from my husband's cousin, who's in real estate in South Florida, and he actually works with quite a few investors. And the guy that we bought this from, we bought another one. I think I showed an example of that before. But you look at it from the outside and it looks pretty nice. I mean, there's nothing that says, hey, this is an awful house, right? Nobody's going to drive by and say, hey, this is a great fixer-upper deal. Well, and this is trying to get my bearings. This is when this is kind of when you sort of come in. This is one of the rooms with some fancy carpet and blue walls. This was the bathroom. The tub looks awesome. Another one there. This was, so when you walk in the front door was over here. You walk in, there's a big wall right here. Then there's this room with fake wood and bright red. And then this is the kitchen. So this over here is the wall facing that other room. This is kind of the front. This is sort of, so you can sort of see it in progress, but I guess it's duplicate pictures. Oh, it came with a pool. So, there's a benefit there with a pretty fancy green pool.
Oh boy.
Oh, and this is pretty nice.
You know what I always say about those, Heather, you just can't get those green bathtubs anymore.
You can't. And you know what? You can't even just glaze them either. So
they're exclusive.
It's gotta all come out. You're good to go. So this is what I would say is probably a typical fixer-upper here. So let me shift gears and just show you. I'll show you. Let's see. Stop share and then maybe share again. Sorry, guys, I'm still working on learning this. So if I could find Chrome in here, that would be super. Here we go. So now this is what it was when we finished the property. So can you see that okay? So the front, we just painted the outside to give it a little more modern and cleaned up a lot of the extra trees. So it looks pretty, but here's the crazy part. So this is the inside. And before I said you walked in here, and right here was that fake wood, and this was the red wall, and this was the big wall in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And so we knocked out all those walls and just opened this space up. And this is, just another, and there was a door right here that went to the dining room. So instead of leaving the door there, we did a cutout in the kitchen here. So you just come around that way. Everything was fully updated, light and bright. This is the living room area. Now we're in need of updating our staging equipment for this one. So the couch is not my ideal couch in this layout, but nonetheless. But this is just a pretty typical renovation for us, I would say, just going through. Oh, and this was the bathroom with the green tub in there. So totally changed the layout of that bathroom in there. So just to sort of show you what, in my opinion, maybe not knocking out walls. I know that takes a little bit of experience and guts to start knocking down walls. But I mean, that's to me sort of a typical renovation where you go in and you say, ooh, this is kind of gross and kind of ugly. How can I make it beautiful and desirable? I mean, everyone that walked through the door of that house loved it. So how do you figure out what the people buying the house are going to love, and how do you execute that vision? And that's what I think love most about the whole renovation side of things.
Yeah, no, and that house is beautiful. Have you guys have it listed now, don't you?
No, that one sold last year. Yeah, that
Oh,
one's gone.
okay.
Yeah, the one
Like,
we have listed now was even more extensive than that one. We added 1,000 square feet onto that one. So
that's what I'm thinking of. Well, so you guys have an idea now of, kind of what it takes as far as, or, even what your options are as far as doing a fix and flip. And, the biggest thing I think is trying to get them. And the truth is everybody thinks there's some sort of magic in trying to acquire these properties, but it's similar to what Heather and I do to acquire other types of properties, and I always think that the key to success is consistency. So it's a matter of, are you consistently going out there and doing your mailings or doing your webinars or doing, your meet and greets or whatever the heck you guys decide to do as far as acquiring these. Heather and I are both big direct mail fans, but we do other things too. And then we also keep in touch with all these people, that we've done work with or, kept bought things from, because you'd be surprised how many people refer you to someone else. But I think that, now it comes down to you guys being super duper consistent with your marketing in order to acquire these, and then understand, sometimes we'll hear about somebody who can get something. Oh my gosh, in the first week I got this. And you're like, wow, that's amazing. But
yeah.
that is amazing. So you have to be patient and you have to be consistent. And that's really the key to success.
And look at your return on investment. I used to sell a course that was motivated seller marketing, and it was just all about different ways to find deals. And it sold for $797. And I had somebody purchase the course and sent me the meanest email. They couldn't believe that, they paid $800 for the course. It cost them $500 for all of their marketing, and all they've made so far was $10,000. I went,
All day long.
okay, so if you want to give me, $1,300 and tell me I can have 10,000, I'd be lining up to give you $1,300. But you have to look at it as return on investment. So we track all of our mailings that go out, and it might sort of feel like, excuse my language, it sucks. Like you're doing a lot and not getting anything. But when you look at it, you get your first deal, and let's say it costs you $1,000 in marketing or $2,000, but you make $30,000. I mean, then but it may not happen the first day. A couple just mechanical things. So we've sort of gone over vision. We talked about how to find deals in a previous one. So what I personally like to do is during my inspection period, where it's still part of my due diligence. So like Karen said, it crosses her desk and she does the numbers. Well, then we have to walk it. And I always to this day hire an inspector because of some very important lessons I learned early on. And almost always you can negotiate something back to cover the cost of inspection. If not, I feel like I dodged a bullet on one early on in my career that's pretty much going to cover inspections for the rest of my life, because I would have probably lost 6 figures. So I always have the inspector come out. But while you're going through that, like on our house, I had the painters and anybody that I needed to give me estimates. I had all that done during the inspection period. So I had all my people, I knew who I was going to use. And because of that, as soon as we close, I can literally get people in the door, that day, so that we can start the process. Because I think a lot of people lose a lot of time because they close on it and then say, oh, okay, let me get bids. And then, 2 months in, they're just starting to get their work done. So I would get all of your bids and get all your estimates and get all your people lined up and ready to go right from the get-go. If you want to do some of the work yourself and you're good at that particular work, you can do it. It's going to take time. Time is money. So is this a get your feet wet? Like in my very first deal, when we basically lived at the property and did a lot of it ourselves. I'm not opposed to that if you're taking it as a learning, because we said, well, we want to learn what goes into this, knowing that, we were going to invest a lot of our time, but we were unemployed at the time. It was just post 9/11. So we had plenty of time. We didn't have a lot of money. So it was okay. But keep in mind, now we couldn't. We're just too busy. We have kids. We have 3 other companies. We're just too busy to be able to go and do it. Expertise, you want somebody that's going to do good quality workmanship, and you want to make sure you're aware of current decor trends. So,
Right.
scour Pinterest a little bit, check it. And keep in mind, you got to look at your area. You're not, if you're on Miami Beach, then, country farmhouse in Waco, Texas is not going to be the look that somebody wants in Miami Beach.
Right.
And then another thing, just to kind of talk about, because this is sort of a pain point for me, is paying your crews. So contractors want their money now, you want to pay them at the end. So you really have to strike a balance. You have to be fair because there are costs that they have out of pocket. And then you have to also protect yourself. So, we will typically say we're going to pay for materials up front that you need, in phases. So we'll pay for the materials, and preferably from Home Depot directly, so we know exactly what's being spent, not give you a check for $5,000 for you to buy materials. We will pay for the materials. They will be at the job site, and then we'll pay on milestones. I'm finding a lot of people are asking for weekly checks or weekly payments, and I'm just so not okay with that. You have to have XYZ done, and done doesn't mean, we had a guy asking for his payment because the kitchen was done, except it was missing the pantry closet. I'm like, it's not done. And if you can't get that pantry closet, we essentially have to start our kitchen over. So make sure that you and your contractors are aware of exactly what those deliverables are. Not mostly done, like not bathrooms mostly finished and we'll come back to grout. Like, nope, we can close the door and we're done in the bathroom. That's the milestone. So I don't know if Karen, you have a different recommendation there, but.
No, I agree 100% because most of you do have to give them some money up front, not just for materials, but obviously they pay mortgage too. So, you have to give them some kind of reasonable money up front. But after that, if the project's longer than a week, we always pay basically on milestones as well, because a lot of your contractors will want weekly money. And what happens is you'll say, okay, and you'll start paying them weekly money. And then what you'll realize is, okay, well, I've already met your quote here in this first month. And yet
you're halfway done.
They're going to act like you still have 2 more months. And now you're going to say, well, it's going to cost more and all this stuff. It doesn't work like that. Okay, great. Here's how we're going to pay specifically, and set it up front and then have them sign it. And that way everybody's, on the same page. So there's no ambiguity, there's no question, there's no pain, there's nothing. And I will tell you, then your project stays on time.
And another thing, it's tricky. We have a big issue with this because, like I said, we flip mostly in Florida, and going into 2020, we were going to ramp up that business, and my husband was going to fly back every other week to manage the projects, and bam, COVID, and there's 2020. And but you need to have, yeah. The good news is I did hear that if you had a birthday after March, then you don't age this year. You get, even though like we all have more wrinkles and more gray hair, but you technically don't got to add another year to your birthday. So I thought that was a benefit. But you do need to have somebody that walks that property every week and make sure that they're staying on track, because they'll say, oh, 6 weeks, it should be done in 6 weeks, 8 weeks tops. And then 4 months later, you're going, what the heck is going on?
That means 12.
Right. So you need somebody constantly walking the property, constantly holding them accountable. You've got to have a manager. You can't just turn it over and hope for the best, because I can promise you it's not going to work.
Right. Or a general contractor, but it depends on what you want to pay.
But even with a general contractor, you still have to, keep them on task, because they're probably managing a bunch of jobs. And if you're not there watching, then they're allocating their crews to people that are breathing down their neck. So, even with a GC, you still have to manage the job.
So your job is to manage, not swing the hammer, just so you guys know. And we're not saying we haven't swung the hammer, because we all have, especially when we first started.
I do like a good sledgehammer to a wall. That's why if you've ever seen The Fixer Upper, I do have to say Chip's demo days are kind of fun.
I do. I like to just walk through with one just so people are afraid of me, but
we're afraid of you anyway. Don't worry.
I'm just joking. No, I love doing fix and flips, just like Heather. They're probably one of my favorite things. In truth, I love and I like the creativity part of it, just sitting down and saying, what can we do? How much will that cost? And, and then seeing it come to fruition. It's just, and keep in mind though, you guys, when you go to sell these, nobody else sees the before. And so, a lot of times people are like, well, you should have seen it before. And I'm like, well, but they didn't. So you really have to just focus on what the after looks like for them, because that's the only way other people will see it. But no, I think fix and flip is great. It's a great way to get started. Or it's a great way to, you can do these forever. basically.
Yeah. I remember it was funny back when I started, I had an old business partner. I remember saying, I'm always going to want to flip houses. And then 2008 happened. I said, I'm never flipping another house again. And then, little by little, the bug just kind of got back. And, the thing I like about it is it's like, all we got to, because we admittedly, when I started, I was buying them for right around 100, give or take, 15 or 20,000 and selling them for, 120 to 150, maybe 170. And that was just kind of the price point I was in. I knew there was this little neighborhood in South Florida that was just off 95 in Broward County. And I mean, kind of a funny story, and I know we got to wrap up, but right after 9/11, I answered an ad in the newspaper for a job, and without all the details, it was door-to-door alarm sales for ADT alarms. And when I went to the interview, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And I said, you know what? I can do this. It's the last thing on the planet that I want to do. So if I can master this, I can pretty much do anything. I didn't do it for very long, I'll be honest, but I did very well. Like my first night out, I sold 3 systems, but it was kind of a weird part of South Florida. And, I had one lady come out in her underwear, another guy's daughter opened the door, and I was, I'm like 22, 23 or something at the time. And I was like, oh, well, don't you want a security system for your daughter? He's like, I got one. It's a gun. You should go. I'm like, okay, out of here. See ya. So it was very interesting. But the funny story is, fast forward a year or so, that's the neighborhood that my partner and she and I flipped almost all of our houses. We'd be like, oh yeah, we did 2520 Rodman Street last month. That one's on sale. Let's go see it. So we really, really had a tight farm area. And 30, 40, 50,000, 20,000 was a good payday, and we were happy to make it. And as you progress, you say, you know what, I'd rather do fewer, bigger deals. So I like the deals where we can make, 50 to 100 to 300, because I'd rather, have a big project. And I like the ability to say, and for some of you, that may be all you have to do for a year. You do one project a year and you're living comfortably. So I just like it because it's a great way to throw money into retirement. You could pay for your kids' college in a couple of rehabs. So there's a lot of flips. And I just think it's a great way to be able to make a lot of money. And there's all kinds of other things we could talk about, when it comes time to sell. Like Karen, you do quite a few 1031 exchanges, and just ways to leverage what you're doing so that you can keep purchasing more properties and growing your money.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Nope. I hope you guys all decide to get into it, and make sure you ask us questions once you do. If you are looking for an agent in those areas, call me or Heather, because we'd be happy to help you. And even if it's not in our area, you guys just ask us where you are, because chances are we can refer you to a really great agent in your area as well.
That, and if you happen to be marketing, or you happen to be in one of our areas, and you say, I'm okay with the first one Heather showed, with a little bit of paint and maybe some carpet, but that second one, I don't even know where to begin. I know, for me, if it's within a couple hours of Austin or a couple hours of West Palm Beach, like we're all in. So, you can make a wholesale fee, a finder's fee. And Karen, I'm not sure how far you go out or wherever, but, I'm sure you're always, if you find a good deal like that, then you'll drive a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So awesome. Well, I hope that you guys got some info, and that it was kind of fun. I know it was kind of choppy going back and forth, but I feel like these are the kinds of things where you sort of have to see like a before and after, and you got to, see what things are versus just imagine, from us talking. So, and there's only so much you want to look at us anyway. So
thanks for joining us, you guys. It was great to see you here today.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.